Right, so one of the first steps here is to mount the pivot point down on the subframe. They've actually done a really good job here. So basically it picks up on 100% existing mounts. So it uses one of the steering rack bolts, which is a 16mm, the original bolt that used to hold down the old selector fork, and also it uses the stud on the bulkhead at the back there, a 10mm stud. And by the time you tighten everything up, it's all actually very sturdy. So that sort of sits there like that to pick up the linkage rod. And then the rods go from there to the gearbox. Right, okay, so you can see we've got the gear stick and all in, the satch shift kit is all fitted there now. I've just finished putting the rubber grommet on where the shaft goes through. So next little job really is going to be trying to put the pedal box throttle, well actually the throttle won't be going in. I'm actually planning on changing that around a bit so the throttle pedal will get left out. But the brakes and everything can go back in, the steering column can be bolted back up, and then the rest of the dash can go back in. I think I'm going to have to do some more trimming on the heater box to clear the extra linkage arm you can see going through the top there. Hopefully not too much. And that's the assembly all put in. You can just see that rubber grommet I mentioned a minute ago. That's just so that you don't have a hole in the bulkhead letting gas and stuff go through. So that's basically all in position ready now to hook up to the gearbox itself. So that'll have to wait until the engine is done. Obviously the clutch is all done, so the next little job is going to be to bolt in the master cylinder again.
Right, well I can't remember what I was going to say, but anyway, the car is pretty much where we want it to be now. There's not a lot else I can do now until sort of the engine's in. There's a lot of wiring and stuff that's going to be needed to be done, but that's obviously once engine's in really, to sort of touch that sort of thing. So we're kind of moving away from the car now, which just brings us on to the main subject of the next few videos. Which is the engine, which I have just dragged out of the ditch with Chris. This has been literally in the back corner of the workshop now for, well, God knows how long. It has had that cover over the top of it, it hasn't just been left wide open. But it's not looking massively happy. So we're going to start stripping everything down now and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so that's the block pretty much stripped down as far as we need to take it for a minute from the top side. I'm going to flip it upside down in a minute and drop the sump. But I'm thinking before I do that I'm just going to clean it up a bit because it's just covered in crud and yuck. The water pump is brand new, so there's no point disturbing that really. So I'll leave that on there where it's to. And obviously the deck and all the boards are only cleaning up. But at least they are still clean, they're not rusty or anything. We did oil it up before we took it off the road. I've also just taken the flywheel off because I'm going to need to use a different flywheel this time round. So I've just given it a quick coat with some paint, gone back to black again now, back to the original colour. I'm going to try and make things look a bit more OEM, fairly tidy hopefully. So I'll let the paint go dry now and we can clean up all the amazing surfaces and bolt holes and all that sort of stuff. So I've sort of sorted out the bottom end now. I've had the sump off just to clean it out and put it all back together again. To be honest with you, there wasn't a lot of point. It was all, you know, immaculate in there anyway because it was literally all cleaned out and it had one lot of oil in there to run it in, and then it was taken off the road. So the bottom end is basically sort of waiting around now for a head. So this is the same cylinder head that was on the block before. So it was a brand new casting from Peugeot. And now my phone's ringing, so we'll have to continue this. Okay, so as I was saying, since the head's been taken off the engine while it's been sitting around for a couple of years, it has actually been off to Finland and back again in that time, where I've had some fairly extensive head work carried out or undertaken by Mark at MPS Heads over in Finland. So he's basically ported the inlets and out exhaust ports and valve valleys, etc. Done quite a bit of work to the valve seats themselves and basically just you know, overall increase the flow characteristics of this head quite considerably. The flow data actually was pretty good anyway. I was actually quite surprised by the flow data as stock. There's a lot of rumours around the internet, etc., about these heads not flowing too well for emissions and all the rest of it, which is partly true. A lot of new engines do, you know, are designed for gas velocity, etc., and don't flow great. But with this in mind, they do still flow extremely well out the factory, which was interesting. However, after the work that's been done, it's, you know, the figures are really impressive. I'm really excited actually to get this on an engine and start playing with it, because God, does it move some air now. The only slight risk is obviously it's the first head he's done, or probably many people have done, to that level. So it was a bit of a risky procedure. I had my old head from the first build, which the cam lobes were knackered on. Sorry, the cam bearing sort of surfaces were knackered. So we did slice the head here in the UK, just to sort of investigate how much meat we had, you know, between waterways, etc., which was considerable in mostly, but there is some places where it's very thin. So obviously we have come very close to sort of the tolerances that he considers to be acceptable, and I would be kind of in agreement. Obviously he knows a lot more about that sort of thing than I do, but it's obviously, once you get too thin, you will blow between, you know, one side of the steel, well, one side of the alley and the other, and obviously once that's happened, the head is then scrap. So hopefully we won't have any of those problems. So yeah, that's the head, pretty much all he's done to it, and obviously it's just had the normal skim pressure test and everything before it was done, and it's sort of semi reassembled when the valves are in it basically. Other than that, the rest of it still needs to go together. So the next job really is going to be actually to put the head back down on the block, which is kind of the next stage. Got the new set of ARP studs for two reasons. One, because I sold the ones that were in the motor before. I was doing someone's car. We was, you know, doing turbo and all that, and he didn't have studs, and I didn't really fancy putting it back together without them. So they got sold at the time, and they weren't an ideal. They were out of my XGD originally. They were a bit long for this motor, which gave me the problem with the cam chain clearance, if you remember in the original videos. So I had to run two standard bolts basically alongside the other ARPs, which was not an ideal solution. So I've got a set here now that should be drop-in and fit without any bits and pieces messing around with. Hopefully. I haven't actually tried it yet. Again, I've had these in the box for years. It was all ordered up to do it, and it just hasn't happened. So now it is hopefully time to try that out, and hopefully they'll fit. Obviously the normal Victor Ryan's head gasket, steel one, exactly the same as what went on before. I want to note on those head gaskets, I seem to have a very common question on YouTube or Facebook and all the rest of it, is where do I get these gaskets from? They can be a bit awkward to get hold of. Not a lot of people carry them in stock because they are generally more expensive than sort of the off-the-mill part shelf kind of gear. So the best way you want to get hold of a sort of gasket like that, or at least the way I find to do it, is if you actually just download the whole, it's on here somewhere, you can basically download the entire Victor Ryan's catalogue, which I can't see. I thought it was on my desktop, but maybe not. So you can download the whole catalogue as a PDF. In fact, it's easier if you just download the manufacturer specific one. So there's one for Peugeot. They do one that covers everything, but it's huge. So you just download the Peugeot manual, you find your engine code, which is obviously easy to do. It'll then give you a list of all the head gaskets available in the various thicknesses. So you literally just pick your thickness, it'll give you the part number of the gasket, and probably the best thing you can do is just bang that part number straight in Google, and see what comes up. I mean, you can bang it in eBay or something first to see if anyone local's got one, or all the rest of it. Generally I will buy them in the UK, but actually this one come from overseas because it was literally half the price. People seem to mark them up stupidly over here, so I actually ended up paying 23 quid for a brand new VR gasket instead of, I think it was like 46, which to be honest with you is the general kind of price which I'd normally end up paying. But I was in no rush for it, and it did take a week or two to arrive, but it saved 20 quid there, so it's sort of 20 quid towards something else. So yeah, that needs to go on the block, the head needs to go on, and then we'll talk everything down. But before I'm actually going to do that, I've just got some general sort of cleaning up and bits and pieces to measure up on the head for other modifications that I've got going on. So I'm just going to work on that now, and we'll come back once we're ready to bolt it down.